Welcome back to the finale, part 3 of Protocol Bash. As you can see, neither of us are ill or plague-ridden this time, so we are here together for the finale, the part 3 of Protocol Bash. Go check out these guys, Rusty Quill, Magnus Archives, all of that protocol. Links to the wiki that I use in the description and the transcripts. So let's jump right into this. Starting with Mag Protocol episode 21, Breaking Ground. Sam and Celia are sitting at the OIR break room. They are drinking coffee, discussing Alice's words in the previous episode. They also discuss whether or not they should leave the OIR. Sam remarking that they are not likely bettering the world working at the OIR.
So Alice defends it. She's like, late stage capitalism, you're getting to get any job is going to be like this job. And Sam's like, we're working directly for the British government.
Basically.
Yeah.
They both agreed to stay. Sam indicating that he will stay and keep digging, likely into the Magnus Archives or Magnus Institute, and Celia remarking that she couldn't afford to leave even if she wanted to.
They live in London. They're not going to survive at Tesco's.
She mentions to her complicated immigration status and says that if she left, she would have to leave Jack behind. Sam offers to help if she and Jack ever need it. So
that's important. He really helps.
He does really help indeed.
Okay. And then we get Chester.
Yes. Chester reading a letter by Leonardo Kennings sent to his colleagues. He is a co-treasurer of the Magnus Institute. It regards a proposal and calculation submitted by Dr. Welling. Kennings states that he does not wish to criticize Dr. Welling's work or the power they might be able to harness with the Dome if they could sponsor an exhibit here. However, he cannot, in good conscience, support the project. He notes the date of the supposed expedition, that of the new millennium, stating that it is indeed a date of importance to many. However, it only holds a relevance to those who follow the Gregorian calendar, with the date having little meaning in other calendars, such as the Chinese, Indian, or Hebrew calendars. He notes that Dr. Welling had proposed the millennium as it was an important psychological focus of transmutation, due to the emphasis of change placed upon the shifting of an age. But Kennings instead recommends the date based on the stars, which would serve better for a universal transmutation. He does further note that using the Gregorian calendar would exclude vast swaths of global population from their calculations, but accepts that this is a debate, and he admits his single-minded colleagues have long since lost.
Do you have a favorite calendar?
I can't say I know any other. What is the calendar we use called?
The Gregorian calendar.
That's it? All right, cool. That shows you how much I know about calendars. Regardless to the abstract considerations, Kennings also theorizes that the location of the Dome is dangerous to their work as a place of power. Dr. Welling had supposedly calculated that the Dome would be balanced in capturing an equal measure of optimism and despair regarding the future. Kennings, however, believed that this balance would be profoundly skewered towards the fearful and despairing. Dr. Welling had failed to account for stagnation and the common belief many people shared in that new millennium, and the fall of the USSR would be the end of history, with an emergent and inherent stability.
There's also no public support for this. There's hardly any. No one wants the Dome.
No one wants the Dome.
It's kind of...
He claims that these ideas would be antithetical to their transformative ambitions and would therefore make the site an unfitting place for their work. He also notes that the site may already be developing as a locus without their intervention, citing this as a further complication to their project. Kennings states that he had previously visited the work site. There he saw the poor state of the laborers, many of them coughing with hoarse voices, likening the site to a Victorian salt mine.
This is an itching of some grim Victorian salt mine. Their fingernails were cracked and dirty, their voices hoarse, and their words often gave way to ragged bouts of coughing. And then he's walking around with a handkerchief too.
Yeah.
Yeah. This again is why I was confused that this happened in 1998. Because I was like, it has to be older than this. It's not.
That's fair. And as he spoke with the foreman regarding the engineering of the dome, Kennings asked him how long the foreman thought the dome would stay up, to which the foreman replied rather cryptically that it could be there forever, or it could be gone within a year.
You never know, do you? You never know what's coming. And then he leaves.
The response caused Kenny to develop a suspicion of airborne contaminants at the site. Kennings dropped behind the visiting group and began to investigate on his own without being watched. He saw a worker, which he described as appearing to be Pakistan, staring idly at the concrete mixer, as if hypnotized by its motion. The worker then abruptly walked to a ditch nearby before staring at the soil in a similar reverie. He then states that he does not feel the need to reassure his colleagues of his sanity due to the known strangeness of their work. He writes that from the soil walls of the ditch emerged a doppelganger of the worker. Albeit some 40 to 50 years older, the young man seemingly released from his trance was stricken with terror, but before he was able to scream, the older version of him covered the younger man's mouth with his hand. The older copy seemed to possess supernatural strength, as he was easily able to pull his younger version into the wall from which he had emerged.
What does this mean? Johnny says I don't understand anything.
They then had a brief desperate struggle, after which both vanished into the polluted ground in less than a minute. The last thing Kennings witnessed was the horrified eyes of the younger man as he sank into the mud. Kennings rejoined the tour group shortly thereafter, encountering little other disturbances of note. He used this experience to reiterate his point that his colleagues should reconsider incorporating the dome into their grand ritual.
He says exactly, I thank my brethren for their time considering these letters and wish them insight in their works.
So yeah, she also deletes the case from the computer.
Yeah, she does.
Before questioning its motives and getting no response. Pulling a real Colin there, talking to the electronics. That's when Lena enters, asking why Alice is using Sam's computer, to which Alice just lies and says she was trying to recreate Gwen's solution to the .jmj errors. Lena tells Alice to return to her own computer.
Lena also says that she thinks the system is functioning better without Colin working there. Which is,
It might be. It could be.
I mean, considering he keeps going around and trying to break things with hammers, maybe.
I'd say in that aspect, yes. Alice says that the OIA are struggling without Colin, to which, Lena basically says that it's actually been functioning slightly better without his interference.
And then Lena asks where Gwen went, if Alice has heard where Gwen went.
Alice doesn't know.
Because Gwen is late.
Yeah, but Alice, can tell that Lena is worried, which... weird. A different side of Lena we see for but a moment. Maybe one that is actually concerned about her workers, her employees. And then we cut to Gwen, I believe, from a phone.
Yippee.
Yippee. So Gwen is then running from Inksole in their warehouse before plunging into an alleyway. Gwen fails to dial a number as we hear Inksole considering what tattoo they might give Gwen.
She mentions a silver spoon.
She mentions a silver spoon.
Yeah.
Gwen then rounds a corner and runs into a bystander who offers to help and tells Inksole to leave, only for Inksole to comment that this is boring, or Inksole comments on the bystander's boring barbed wire tattoo. That tattoo then begins to saw through his arm as Inksole continues to pursue Gwen through the rain.
Yeah, he loses his arm, according to the transcript.
Apparently. Probably. The bystander is also a guest voiced by Callum Daughtery. Apparently.
Alright.
This is when that cuts, and we hear a tape recorder clicking on. As Gwen is cornered to a chain link fence, Inksoul grabs her arm and begins to tattoo a scorpion onto it.
Okay, Scorpion. Gwen starts to be compelled.
Yeah.
She starts to talk.
Oh, yeah.
Gwen, so you have Inksoul like trying to get a tattoo to Gwen.
Yeah.
And, you know, as everyone has nightmares about. Trying to give a tattoo to Gwen. Tape recorder noises in the corner. Something with too many eyes that Gwen mentions later. And at the same time, she starts talking about what I think is her childhood.
Yes.
Magnus Archivists.
She begins monologuing like a river. Basically talking about shed in a garden. She was told to never approach it as a child due to the sharp tools within. This is when Inksoul gets alarmed and, you know, just tells her to stop.
Yeah.
Just stop talking. And then Gwen just continues describing gruesome injuries that could have been caused by various tools. As a strange figure that Gwen will describe with many eyes approaches, claiming Gwen and all of them as its property or like mark. Inksoul finally relents and stops trying to tattoo Gwen, letting the still talking Gwen escape. Inksoul states that Gwen is all yours, and this being replies that there is more before disappearing. Inksoul then picks up the tape recorder and it bites her and clicks off.
So, the voice...
Yes.
Which is called Air in the transcripts. Air goes, "No, not here, elsewhere." Proceeds with the diction. Inksoul comes up, goes, "Whatever, minky old git." Oi, you left your... Picks up the tape recorder and it bites her.
Great. Johnny Sims, you hack. But that is where this episode kind of stops off. Again, we will find out more what this error exactly is in a moment. And then the Millennium Dome is also apparently a thing that featured in the ARG that released before Season 1. In Magnus Protocol, Episode 22, Mixed Signals, this one was written by Alexander G. Noel. And it starts with Lena questioning a dripping wet and furious Gwen while suppressing irritation regarding her escape from Inksoul. Gwen bites back, stating that she was left unguarded, unprepared, and uninformed, and that it was reasonable, albeit lucky that she managed to escape. Lena then tries to get more out of her, remarking that Gwen had not gained the contact details of a watching figure in reference to this error. Lena then elaborates on her disappointment of Gwen's performance as an external liaison, bringing to attention the death of a bystander and the existence of two free-roaming externals. Before Gwen leaves, Lena adds that she would be retaining her title as liaison officially due to her ministerial visits, but will not be taking on any more assignments for the near future.
Augustus time.
Augustus time. Everybody loves Augustus time.
Our dear Grandpa Augustus tells us the most wonderful stories. Okay, this one is pretty fun. It's a welcome collection private record letter from Hansberger to Dr. Richard Caton, dated 14 December 1924. Yes. And basically, who Hansberger is a experimenting neurologist, I'd say. He's looking into dealing with brain surgery, and the ways that he's doing it are really sketchy. I would say. I mean, brain surgery is always sketchy, but it's
little freaky, little sketchy.
Yeah. So he's writing a letter to Dr. Richard Caton, and he's like, "Sorry for my delay. I wanted to tell you sooner, but I couldn't." Richard Caton is giving him advice on what to do for his studies, and he's taking it into account. And then he tells us about what happens.
The letter basically begins with Berger apologizing for the delay. As you mentioned, experiments take longer than expected, but Berger now writes, now writes to him wondering if he left out some key information about any side effects on the subjects of his experiments, as Berger's own had been alarming.
Yeah.
Who'd have thunk? He describes that one of his subjects, Herr Schmidt, who has an unusual cranial deformity that let Berger directly access to his dura mater, which is like the layer under the cranium, which Berger would use to his advantage to obtain more accurate pressure measurements. As Berger tested the electrical signals within the brain, he had placed silver wires under the scalp, as well as attaching a Lippmann capillary electrometer. As he started the experiment, as it was erratic, but after some trial and error, he was finally able to record the electrical signals. He included a photography of the records taken by his wife Ursula in the letter.
Ursula is basically like his assistant, but he says later that she's not very good at being an assistant.
Berger goes on to say that he invited Herr Schmidt for a more intense session, with Schmidt agreeing. Berger mentions another researcher named Konstantin
M. Bykov.
Konstantin M. Bykov?
I don't know. Basically, he's talking about if you separate the hemispheres of the brain and you sever the connection between the body, acts like two different things, and it was tested on wolves. I don't know if it's true or not.
I mean, I guess that makes sense.
At least in the universe, if you separate wolves' brains, they act like two different wolves. There's two wolves inside of you.
There are two wolves inside of you. Berger wanting to try this, the whole wolf brain thing, with the agreement of Schmidt, performed an operation to insert silver wires to the same part of Schmidt's brain. Repeating the earlier experiments with these new implements, Berger found that results to be greatly exaggerated and paused, fearing the equipment was at fault. He later, then falling asleep at his desk after working late, he dreamt that he was in an ocean, waking up inspired to take a different approach to his previous tests, borrowing equipment from presumably the university where he works. Using a telegram key and solder, Berger assembled a device to read the brain waves as telegraph clicks. Retracting the electrodes to the subject, Berger once again asked the same questions, with Schmidt answering the same, but now the telegraph responded with a clicking sound. As Berger told Schmidt to imagine himself, the clicking seemed to go a little faster at the line of questioning. While waiting on Ursula, Berger, in a moment of uncharacteristic whimsy, tapped out the phrase, "imagine yourself," upon the telegraph. After pausing briefly, the clicks from the telegraph solder suddenly increased dramatically, sounding faster than Berger thought was possible. Berger once again asked, "What is it you want?" This time over the telegram, he was met with an overwhelming surge from the solder, with the machine beginning to smoke. Berger was then distracted by Ursula loudly dropping equipment, and upon turning to face her, he saw the look of terror on her face. She asked him if he could not hear it. Out of nowhere, Schmidt started to convulse as he began to scream as Berger and Ursula tried to stop him from biting off his own tongue.
Yeah, he hit a Grand Mal Caesar, and it's really bad. It's a bad one.
Whoa. And then out of nowhere, a loud crack sound came through the room as blood sprayed from Schmidt's head. At this time, the telegraph stopped abruptly, and Schmidt fell to the floor. And it was in the weeks following that Berger was kept busy with other paperwork and in the investigation, but he had obtained signed consent from Schmidt before the procedure. He faced no consequences for the experiment, and sometime later at the funeral that Berger and Ursula did not attend.
They did not attend.
No attending there.
They did pay him, the family.
Yeah, they paid the family.
Yeah.
But later, after actually going over the findings, in the letter explains that Ursula had always been more proficient than him with the telegram, explaining why he did not understand that at the time her terror. Reading through the transcripts of the telegraph conversation, he saw that in response to his question, "Imagine yourself," the telegram responded, and I quote, I am, me, I am, me, we are. His further questions had elicited a response of, I am here alone, we are I alone, all alone, so alone, together alone, nothing, no, alone, alone. And then when asking about what they wanted, the response was, help we us, alone, help we, I help, need, help out, need, out, we, out, I, out, we, out, I, out, help, need, out.
Kind of creepy. And also, he mentions that his results are covered in, like, blood and cerebral fluid. Mm-hmm. He's like, such a shame I can't read these as well because of all the spine juice.
All the spine juice. Berger explains that this is why he had written to Dr. Catton, seeking further answers or corroboration, ending the letter by stating he felt he could not publish these findings for fear of the ridicule, which I feel like is the least... the worst part of what could have happened there.
Yeah.
And then we get Sam talking to Alice, or more so confronting her about why she's messing with his computer. Initially denying it, Alice does admit to doing so, telling that she thinks that the computer is deliberately giving him statements in cases related to the Magnus Institute, and that she's just trying to look out for him because of his obsession with it. Sam gets angry, and Alice tries to, control again, basically, and questions why she even works at the OIR. With Alice also sounding somewhat upset as she explains it is easy money and she partially likes being one of the few people who can stand it there. Sam starts to talk to Alice about Celia, and no, it must be hard for them to see together, but Alice cuts him off, returning to her work. And then it is later where Celia asks if Sam is looking into the Magnus Institute more, and that she has come across the names Martin Blackwood and Jonathan Sims.
Sounds a little bit familiar.
Which Sam doesn't recognize, but those names sound a little familiar. And then that's where this episode ends. Of course, for all those who know Jonathan Sims, Martin Blackwood, they're kind of important to the Magnus Archives.
Go listen to the first episode of the Magnus Archives and you'll get an idea of who they are at least.
Yeah. Okay. Apparently all the characters in this case are real historical figures. Even Herr Schmidt, though his real name is unknown. Although not stated in the episode, at the time of the letter, Berger worked at the University of Jena in Germany. The letter would appear to indicate that this is where the experiment mentioned took place. That's interesting.
That makes sense.
So another episode that includes real people. The thing that the one thing that brings this out into my mind, very Sergei Yushchenko of, in a sense, or like the beginning of a Yushchenko, or very early on Yushchenking.
You're saying words, and I don't know what they mean.
Sergei Yushchenko, the guy, stuck in the computer of, this server's, the code cuts my thing, and then he ate the computer.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember the guy who ate the computer.
Yeah, the guy who ate the computer, yeah.
Okay.
So, the code cuts me, all that sort of. So I could see that,
I kind of interpreted it as if there was something else inside of him that was trying to speak outside.
That's
hence,
also interesting. Yeah.
Hence all the out, we need out.
All the we, yeah, probably.
Yeah. But I don't know.
Or then again, if it's back to the you cut the brain in half, it's two different things that could also explain the we.
That too. I don't understand the out part. So I was thinking the out part could be there's something stuck in there and it wants to get out. There are two wolves inside of you.
There are two wolves inside of you. Magnus Protocol episode 23, A New You. I really like this one. This one's pretty cool. Who wrote this one? Guest writer for Harlan Guthrie. Harlan Guthrie, that's what I'm going to say.
Thank you, Harlan Guthrie.
Thank you.
For
Good statement.
bestowing on us a new you.
Good case. The episode starts off with a computer booting up. Who'da thunk? Hearing Sam talking to himself as Lena walks in. Asking if there are any problems. Sam replying, only a broken pencil.
He's still trying to do this paperwork.
The response one-to-one paperwork. As Lena asks what he's working on, he responds that he's working on the response department papers.
And he's only doing it off the clock.
He's only doing it off the clock because Lena is
relax.
To relax. Well, because then again, it's like stupid questions, right? Yeah. It's just oh, what did you have for breakfast that one day 10 years ago? Just stupid crap like that. So yeah, Lena's like, oh, you shouldn't do that on company time. He's like, don't worry, this is my own thing. I do that. It's my fault. I started it anyways. Lena says that it's probably just a prank from like Alice or something like that. And Sam, he's just like, could be, I guess.
Yeah, he says, I want to see how long she can keep it up for. Just
very Sam thing to do. And this is when we hear Chester again, who is reading a series of forums by All Newman 86, centering around her journey to find her peace. In the introductory post dated on June 20th of 2018.
It's not peace like you think it would be. It's different.
It's different, that's for sure. All Newman 86 also describes how someone overheard her referring to it and thought she meant inner peace. Notably, throughout the case, at the end of each post, the like and comment counts are reported with varying numbers of likes and always 0 comments. In the next post on July 13th, All Newman announces that she has found her peace. It is located in an aquarium in the restaurant Anthony, her former partner, proposed. All Newman notes how she is a little worried about retrieving it, saying she will have to be sneaky, then describing her first memory in the aquarium, how serene it was seeing the piece, which...
The one she writes before this, the post before it, is basically like, help, I can't find it. Does anyone have any advice? And now this one, aquarium, she found it.
Mm-hmm. She ends the post with saying how she plans to retrieve the piece the following day. And the following day, they report on how she's parked outside of the restaurant waiting for the last guests to leave. She thinks on how much this restaurant meant to her, what could have happened if things had gone different, and she says she wants to become better, someone pain can't touch.
Somebody new.
In another post the same day, All Newman describes how she had retrieved her piece and feels alive for the first time in her life.
Yeah, she describes stealing it a little bit too.
Yeah, and again, we'll find out later in the sense that this is a piece of coral that she's stealing. Weird. In the next post on July 16th, so a little while... Oh, never mind. No, I'm stupid. The following post on July 16th, All Newman describing how last night was the best sleep of her life. She then goes to recount a dream, where she was at the restaurant with Anthony and suddenly everyone disappeared. She panicked as she locked eyes with her coral piece in the aquarium. She then details her preparations, including sanitizing the scalpel as suggested by LaserCat23. The following post from later that day is a short update. She notes that she's feeling a bit woozy, but it is done, and that her thigh bled a lot more than she expected, which Burnt Tumbler J was right about. Yeah. All Newman then expresses excitement, stating, I can't wait. I can see her under my rippling skin, wanting to grow. She's perfect. She's everything I wish I could have been.
Would you do this?
Open my thigh and put a piece of coral in. Yeah. I cannot say.
Yeah,
would you?
It'd be a new you. Like, if you could make a perfect version of yourself by only killing the previous you, would you do it?
Not with coral. Maybe something like... I don't know why I want to say plastic. In the next post on 10 days later, July 26th, All Newman recounting how she has returned to work and is struggling. She notes that she keeps running her fingers under her skirt to feel her pieces polyps, a life that she can hold within her body and nature. She says that...
Not like a baby.
Not like a baby.
She says that the next paragraph. Not like a baby.
Not like a baby. She says that they are becoming one and then two.
Yes. Not like a baby.
Not like a baby. No. Definitely not a child. I don't think you take like fetuses and sew them into your leg. Then they grow. The next post on August 18th, Alt Newman states that she is in the early stages of part 2 and it is terrifying. She recounts that it began with her feet, which she noticed when on one day in the shower she couldn't feel them, and it is now continuing up to her waist. She says she has a lot of time off of work for the next part, as well as humidifiers set high, curtains taped shut, and everything she needs within reach. She says she is terrified yet exhilarated. And then 9 days later, on August 27th, All Newman says that it's starting, describing her skin breaking and the coral polyps blooming. She also states that she's managed to rent a paralysis computer and suggested by again Burntumber J.
Thank you so much, Burntumber J.
Thank you so much. She expresses excitement seeing her in the world. A few days later, August 30th, All Newman describes having the dream again and how the piece, or what it is growing into, has her eyes.
It's also titled Am I Dreaming, which I think is important.
What's the title of Am I Dreaming?
That post.
That post? Oh, that.
Yeah.
That, yep. That's... and then a few days later, oh wait, I already just said that. On September 1st, the next day, she describes how she is having difficulty swallowing fluids and how her skin is damp with sweat and mold.
Her stomach unzipped.
Stomach unzipped.
There was only the blood. It was beautiful, but it took forever.
All Newman states that Alice Newman is leaving the world, and her replacement, who may look the same, will be free of her mistakes and have her good parts. And then a couple days later, September 3rd, it is written with a paralysis computer. Alt Newman states that she loves her replacement more than she thought she could love anything, and the post ends mid-sentence, implied to be when Alt Newman's skull breaks apart and the birth is complete. And the post has 37 comments in response. The final post later that day was deleted by moderators. Alt Newman states that something is wrong, that she needs help, and then the thread is locked.
0 likes, 0 comments.
So,
Celia and Sam time.
Celia and Sam!
I do feel like it's really interesting that a lot of episodes in Protocol so far have focused on the horror of pregnancy and the horror of birth.
Yeah, there's this one. We'll get to the demon baby.
It gets worse.
I mean, yeah. So back Sam and Celia. Sam pours himself a cup of coffee in the break room while cameras zoom in on Celia, asking Sam if they found anything on this Martin Blackwood and Jonathan Sims, whoever those hooligans are. Sam responds that all they found was that neither of them had any association with the Magnus Institute and that they never met, with one of them dying from a cycling accident and the other from a heart condition around 20 years ago. Celia says that she did find something useful. She thinks she found the right. She says she found the right Basira Hussein, and that she has a lead on a Helen Richardson. Sam suggests that they should go talk to them. And then Gwen enters the room. Celia asks if she'd like to join them, despite Sam suggesting to the contrary. Gwen saying she's fine. Celia asks Gwen if they need any help with her coming back to cases again. Gwen emphasizes that she is, again, fine. Celia and Sam then go, leaving Gwen in the break room, and Gwen accidentally drops her mug as she makes coffee and begins to cry. This is when Alice walks in, joking about how things are back to normal before going quiet after seeing Gwen crying. Gwen insists that she is fine. Alice tries to comfort her, telling Gwen how Sam had broken her favorite mug the previous month, and asks if being back on cases is really that bad. Gwen explains that isn't why she is so upset. After some prompting, explains she knows where the cases are coming from, telling Alice that Lena has been sending her to deal with the externals. She goes on to say that the last time this happened, she was supposed to be recruiting a tattooist, but they then turned on her, trying to kill her, and as she ran, another sort of entity external appeared, giving her the chance to run. Alice asks if Gwen notified Lena or the police. Gwen gets angry at Alice and points that this is not something they could just take to the police. Then explains what Lena knows. She does not care enough to warn them. Gwen is just skeptical. Alice believes her, but Alice assures her that she does. Alice talks about the other external, other than the tattooist, to which Gwen implies that the external has many eyes and that it just stood there holding a tape recorder. Gwen's mention of the tape recorder prompts Alice to state that they are all in danger. Gwen asks what they're going to do, and Alice responds that she does not know.
We're with Lena again and Gwen, and they're in Lena's office. It's another recorded on the landline. Lena is telling Gwen that she cannot do the external Linus's position anymore. And stop asking me, I'm not going to give it to you. And then Gwen's like, I apologize, I've learned so much because of this. And she's like, I can do it now. Lena goes, does not change the fact that you cannot in good conscience give you your former role given anything that has happened. It would be irresponsible. Which, knowing Lena, I don't know if I believe that that's the reason necessarily.
No, I feel like this is, it's likely something else.
But Gwen offers to work for it. Lena tells her she has to be very loyal to basically their program.
Mm-hmm. And also asks Gwen to help her with the upcoming minstrel visit. And then Gwen leaves, not fully happy with the decision, but this is when we get Norris reading details about a nanny cam device registered to a Patricia Spalding, dated February 29th of 2024. And then the case is actually told by nanny cam audio from Patricia, who is voiced by Thea Durham. And so the first recording starts playing as Patricia begins. She explains that a healthy visitor had advised against the nanny cam.
Hello, what?
Hello, what?
A healthy visitor? Hello?
A health visitor,
Okay.
not a healthy visitor.
The health visitor says it's not a good idea to record, but she's like, I want to talk about my baby anyways. His name
my
is
baby
Rupert.
He's amazing. He's my baby.
And she's like, I don't remember anything about the pregnancy or the birth. It's fine, whatever. Rupert's perfect.
Rupert's perfect. I love my Rupert. She explains that he's not sleeping much, but that he needs to eat every few hours.
Yeah, normal for a newborn, but not this one.
Not this one. This one ain't normal. Nevertheless, she is going to be there for Rupert 24/7, whatever he needs. She ends the recording talking about how cute she finds it when Rupert sticks out his tongue, describing it as long, thin, and curly, saying how adorable it is.
He also has black eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, she mentions that earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
the second recording begins with Patricia saying that she thinks something is wrong. She's been hearing strange sounds, even though only her and Rupert are in the house. They sound like moans or something that barks like a dog. But she only hears them on the few occasion. Rupert will stay asleep just by himself, just fine. She says that she feels like she's going crazy before reminding herself that she shouldn't say that, which was a lesson she had learned in the mom's support group that she attends. Remarking how much Rupert needs feeding, she carries on talking about the support group, saying how nice it is the other moms there. One woman, Celia, is, and how Rupert always seems very well behaved at the meetings, putting on a good face, trying not to bite anyone with his sharp little teeth.
Rupert also really likes Celia.
Yeah, and Rupert takes a liking to Celia. Very, very weird. Mentioning Rupert is asleep in the other room, she confesses that her fear is that something might be wrong with him. Before just laughing it off, she says that she could mention that at her next support meeting. And then in the third recording, Patricia's voice is sounding noticeably tired and more monotone. As the recording progresses, faint slurping sounds can be heard. She says things have not been good lately and she has not been feeling well. Rupert needs feeding more. She always needs more bandages. With how much Rupert is feeding, she idly wonders how much of her will be left if this keeps up. She sounds slightly more optimistic when she talks about how he looks when he feeds, recounting how in the morning he'd gotten a smear of blood on his cheek while feeding, how beautiful he had looked.
Did you mention that she stopped going to the support group?
I think that's the next. Is that the next one?
It's a little bit earlier in the transcripts, but she stopped going to the support group.
She stops. In the fourth recording, Patricia, still sounding worse and more unwell, continues to say how drained she is, but how she must keep eating so Rupert can eat as well. The noise in the background of the previous recording is now animalistic, like gurgling.
It is not a baby, says the transcripts.
Wow. I think I could have told them that. This could have been an email.
And this ends with her giving Rupert her arm, basically.
Yeah, the noise begins to get louder as, Rupert's in the crib just wanting to feed. She says the health visitor says it's normal and notes that, that they're every day now. The noise comes louder and offering to feed she just allows it to feed on her arm.
Yeah.
And then in the fifth and final recording, Patricia is struggling to speak, her voice almost a whisper. She seems confused. Everything is dark. She hasn't slept in days. Gurgling noises from the start of the fourth recording are back. Closer to the microphone, the noises progress sounds like chewing as Patricia explains she has Rupert on her lap for her to feed as much as he wants, and she can no longer move. As the noises increase, she says she is scared. There isn't much of her left as the recording ends with her saying, "At least Rupert is happy."
And now it's Sam and Celia.
Back to Sam and Celia.
And they're getting ready to go on an adventure. They are proud new parents of Humphrey.
Humphrey. As they what is it? They walk into a building of a school where Basira is waiting for them.
Hassan. So
still voiced by the wonderful Frank Voss,
yep.
Deputy head.
Okay.
And then Headmaster Donaldson is not there. That's why they're dealing with her.
They're at St. Luke's basically, and they're like, our beautiful child Humphrey wants to be enrolled in our school, but we need to ask you specifically questions.
Yes, you specifically, you questions. In which Sam tries to bluntly pry into Basira's history.
Basically, it's Sam asking these really dark questions and Celia going, "My husband's is insane," for 10 minutes.
Yes. Celia then does ask if she's ever worked for the police, surprising Sam and angering Basira. At this point, she stops talking, and Celia and Sam are shown out. Sam asks why Celia had mentioned the police, who then brushes it off, saying she thought she remembered something. For those Magnus Archives listeners, Basira Hassan was a cop. So
also, Sam asked if she had any work or experience at other academic institutions, and then they mentioned the Magnus Institute in here.
Yes.
Which I didn't think you got to.
Sam asks if she has ever been involved with the Magnus Institute, to which Basira says she's never heard of it. Mag episode 25, Gut Hungry. Alice is working at her computer, and Sam enters the building to the relief of Alice. She asks how his interview with Basira had been, and he jokes that he wasn't eaten by monsters. They share banter before Alice talks about Celia, who Sam replies is fine too, albeit running late due to another childcare emergency. They then speak about how Alice has been worrying about the two recently. Sam likening her to a dog that gets nervous and starts barking at the postman, to which Alice retorts, if he ever calls her a dog, she will start humping his leg.
So they talk about how many people postmen murder per year.
I love all the little conversations that people have.
It truly is the office humor we didn't get in the Magnus Archives.
Mm-hmm.
But also, it comes at the cost of my sanity.
And that is when Norris, we haven't heard Norris in a hot minute.
Hello, Norris.
Hello. He starts reading from an email from Tom Connolly. Yeah, Tom Connolly, an editor working for the
Musinine.publishing.com.
Yes, responding to the review sent to him by Kieran Hart, following by said review. Tom states that they cannot publish the review and that Hart should rewrite it, as he took too long to get to the food part, and the whole style of the review differed from the other reviews Kieran had written previously. At the end of the feedback, Tom writes that if this was Kieran's way of announcing his retirement, he had hoped Kieran could have told him directly rather than through a review. He then asks Kieran to call him so they can talk through things. Norris then reads out the original message dated February 6th of 2024. Kieran begins the review, which is of the Hungry Man Grill in Newham.
Tom, here's your review. I hope you choke on it.
Stating that there is nothing more satisfying than reading a bad review, as the writer can freely use words they would like and not hold anything back. Kieran states that was one of the reasons he began the Dirty Eating column 4 years ago. He then describes how he enjoyed writing these reviews and suspects his audience greatly enjoyed them as well. He speculates that perhaps the Hungry Man Grill is his punishment for all of those disgusting reviews. Kieran describes how he had found the Hungry Man Grill down a side road in Newham, but he suspects it would move to accommodate prospective visitors. Kieran goes on to say that he does not remember how he heard the Hungry Man Grill, as it was so far down his list of reviews to complete that it would not have been noticeable, but he does not remembering adding it to his list, nor does he have any notes about the restaurant that might have made him want to visit. Kieran recounts how he had difficulty finding the restaurant, as its recorded address does not seem to correspond to any streets. He eventually finds it in an alleyway near a closed-down vape shop. Approaching the restaurant, Kieran recalls almost slipping twice on the oily cobbles, also noticing many maggots on the ground.
Must have been bags everywhere.
Bin bags.
Yeah. Grease.
Kieran also states that
there's maggots everywhere too.
Yeah, maggots. That there's something of a sinister, hungry feeling that he's getting. A sinister hunger, if you will. Kieran explains how he would usually eat a good meal before any review, so as to not be driven mad, in a sense, to eat, or like driven to eat. Hungry.
So his whole thing is that he goes into these places and he only eats as much as he wants.
Yeah.
So he stops if it's gross. And it doesn't happen at this place. At the Hungry Man Grill, you don't get to control how much food you're going to eat. Mm-hmm. Especially when it comes to maggots.
On this occasion, he had, not even an hour before, he had a big sandwich at the Green Pig Cafe. Yet this time he feels hunger like he's never felt before. A hunger that went through his whole body, a hunger so strong that, while his mind pushed him to leave, his appetite made him stay.
He became the hungry man.
He became the hungry man. As Kieran opened the door to the restaurant, it looked fairly normal for a Dirty Eating review, with old posters for meal deals on the walls and framed pictures of what's supposed to be celebrities who had visited the restaurant. There were others already in there, hunched over, eating in silence, but Kirian was so overcome with hunger, he had not taken notice to them.
On the celebrity wall, it says, I recognized none of them, and they did not look happy to be on the wall of the Hungry Man Girl.
Eating in silence. As Kirian sat down, there was no obvious waiter to take his order, but he was too weak to stand and go looking for one. As he waited, he noticed two things from the restaurant. First, the smell of spoiled milk and expired meat. The worst thing that he had ever smelled. But this did not manage to stifle his unending sinister hunger. The second was that the other people wore in tattered clothes with ancient food stains, as he calls it. Many of them seemingly to be weeping, yet they still shoved food into their mouths.
Their toothless mouths.
Toothless mouths. Before Kirian could get up and leave, the chef opened the kitchen door, at first seeming normal enough until you saw the grime that he had all covering him.
He has like dozen varieties of vicious ooze, is what he says. Well, the greasiest man is going to serve you
greasiest man, world's
a multi-course meal.
Multi-course meal. The first course was soup, viscous white with green streaks and thin strings that resembled noodles but leapt off the spoon to crawl eagerly down Kirian's throat.
It's oily soup.
Kirian ate every mouthful, and yet his hunger only grew. Then the second course came, a burger, but the meat patty gleamed with a rainbow sheen as if it had been dipped in petrol. A pus-like substance, unclear whether it was a condiment or from the meat itself, dripped from it. The bun, outwardly fine, was filled inside with thousands of weevils. Kirian describes them almost palatable after they stopped moving, but that it took a lot of chewing. Kirian does not share the details of the third course, only that it was presented as an ice cream cake, and how he tried his utmost to throw it up. He was prevented, but that was prevented by his unending hunger.
He's still hungry.
Kirian describes how he felt some hope at the conclusion of dessert, as the meals should now be finished, yet the chef returned to the kitchen. He knew there would always be more. With what little willpower he had still, he managed to stand up, stumble towards the door, and into the sunlight. Kirian says that this will be his last review, not only because he fears if he goes into another restaurant he'll find himself back at the Hungry Man Grill, but also because even a week after taking the last bite of food, he can still feel the food inside of him, pulsating and pressing against his belly, and yet he is still hungry. He ends the review by saying, "A meal at the Hungry Man Grill will stay with you until your dying day."
Alice relates this to university. She says it brings back university memories, doesn't it? And Sam's like, I guess. And then he goes, oh my gosh, yes. And then Sam goes, the sloppy joes were really bad. And then Colin shows up.
Did you keep them entertained?
Maybe. We got to the part where Colin shows up with a hammer.
Oh yeah. So yeah, Colin shows up with a hammer. Before, he interrupts her to stay out, telling Alice to stay out of his way, before smashing a monitor. He then attempts to move to the server room, ignoring Alice and Sam's warnings. He tells them to all shut up and that they wouldn't understand. He's trying to save them from that nightmare machine, probably, talking about Freddy.
There's a lot more curse words.
Alice reasons that if he's going to smash it to bits, then it's okay for him to explain himself. Colin then replies that her plan would only work if it lived in the servers. Sam then tries to suggest Colin and the pair move to a room where it can't listen, to which Colin retorts, no such location exists. Colin's paranoia progressing, swinging his hammer around, prompting Sam to tackle him. We then cut to Lena's landline, where she debriefs Sam, Alice, and Gwen, questioning why they tackled an unstable armed man on government property without alerting the authorities. Alice asks if Colin is all right, to which Gwen responds he is in police custody due to his assault on the government employees and property. After Gwen comments that it was a miracle no one was hurt, Lena retorts that he had destroyed 3 terminals and damaged a server rack, asking again why they confronted Colin the way they did. Sam responds that he thought he was going to hurt Alice, prompting Alice to chuckle quietly to herself. Lena requests that Sam reviews their liability waivers next time before attacking any other hammer-wielding maniacs. Lena then asks Gwen about the server damage, to which she responds that the damage is mostly superficial, but that she isn't an IT expert. Lena assures her that they will have someone take a closer look in due time, asking that in the meantime that the 3 focus on cleaning up before the ministerial visit. Sam stops the group, requesting that they discuss whether or not Colin is right about the computers listening on them. Lena then says that if they were, there would be little they realistically acted on them, regardless of whatever quirks in the system they might have. She then comments that the damage Colin had caused, it would be lucky for them to avoid domestic terrorism charges. She then suggests that the 3 get to cleaning and she'll look for an IT replacement. She then asks where Celia is, Sam responding that it was another emergency, prompting Lena to threaten to add a second position to the jobs page. Sam says that she'll tell her such before everyone leaves. Then Celia time. Celia is at a coach station near Oxford.
She's trying to get back to London again.
Yeah.
She has a talk with the attendant, and the attendant's basically worried because she looks terrible. And then Celia's like, I have so many unexpected trips where I have to travel all the time unexpectedly. And then it just ends.
Yeah. Again, going back on how Celia randomly wakes up in various locations. Mag episode 26, Catching Up. A computer boots up and we hear Sam typing on it. Celia asks if he's almost done. Sam responds that he is, and that if the last case she categorized is under dog. Celia asks if there's a problem with that, and Sam says that there isn't. He persists a moment more. Celia laughs, then asks if they should go meet Helen or keep discussing dogs. Sam agrees, but Celia notes his nervousness and asks if he's okay. He says that he is okay, but that he can't handle another dead end. This is when Alice walks in on the 2, and Celia greets her. Alice asks if they were Magnusing,
yes.
Which confuses Sam and Celia. She then explains it is referring to searching for things Magnus related.
Alice says Magnusing, verb, to insist on poking around stuff to do with the Magnus Institute, despite Alice's continued efforts to stop you getting yourselves killed.
She jokes that, they should, use protection.
A big knife.
Which, Celia pulls out a big knife.
And Alice goes, that will do. Okay, then. Maybe don't get it out at work, though. Especially considering what happened last episode.
Chester time. This is a witness statement of Alexander Rumis, dated April 14th of 2024.
September.
After giving the background details on his life, Alexander states that the person he saw die, Jared Smith, was his old athletics coach. Alexander recalls how he discovered as a young child that he could run faster than anyone. He was only 10 when he could outrun most teachers and all the other boys in school next to his primary. Only Mr. Jared, the PE teacher in his final year of primary, could outrun him. This was the first time they had done athletics in PE, and Alexander beat all the others except for Mr. Jared, which shocked him. After he asked Mr. Jared to teach him how to run faster, he asked Mr. Jared how to teach him run faster.
What?
I don't know.
Can you teach me to run faster?
Teach fast when me, yes.
Yes.
Yay. While Alexander's parents did not understand this need to run faster, they could not afford proper running shoes. Mr. Jared had a spare of shoes and offered to bring them home after each training, so they agreed. From then on, 3 times a week, Alexander had running training with Mr. Jared. No matter the weather, they never missed a session.
He's the fastest in the borough now. He wins the London athletics meet. He's the youngest ever to do so. basically Mr. Jared is telling him to only focus on running. He's
only
like,
running.
yes, absolutely.
All running.
All running.
The following year, just before the meet, Alexander's father dies. He had just set a new personal record for the 100 meters when he saw his older sister standing on the edge of the track, her face slack. It's Dad, she said, we have to go home. And then Alexander ran, like if it's the fastest he's ever run. He would get to his father and he would still be alive, but it doesn't work out like that. His father was dead. Alexander then stopped running. And then a few weeks after the funeral, Mr. Jared came knocking on Alexander's door, but he didn't answer. He didn't see Mr. Jared again until the day prior to this statement. Alexander had taken regular walks before work just to stretch his legs. On the day, he saw Mr. Jared running faster than ever before, seemingly more frightened than anyone he had ever seen. He called to Mr. Jared and looked to see what was chasing him, but saw nothing. Then he tried to run after Mr. Jared, but could not catch up to him. Mr. Jared kept running, terrified, but Alexander only heard that he was speaking, telling some awful story. Then he stumbled. His head cracked on an open pavement, and he still tried to stand up to keep running and kept speaking. They're coming now and getting close, so very close. And when I slow and when I stop, they will catch me and they will hurt me.
He acts like he's running for his life.
Yes. Then a figure approached, shadowed even in the sunlight. It held a tape recorder up to Mr. Jared's mouth, catching his dying words. When Alexander asked who it is, it replied, an archivist.
Yippee!
Then Mr. Jared screamed, his mouth tearing open, and Alexander screamed too. That was statement ends.
Yes. Alice and Gwen time.
Alice and Gwen!
Alice is actually disturbed about this one.
For once.
She says it's...
specifically by it being called Archivist.
Yeah. And Gwen kind of teases her about it, and then Alice goes, I suppose you're just cucumber cool about it. Yet another visit from your murderous tape recording pal. Isn't that it?
Yeah.
There's not a code for archivist in the system.
No, there would not. I doubt there would be.
Which Alice is annoyed about.
And then, Celia and Sam, as they go to meet my favorite, Helen Richardson, of the Protocol universe. They discuss the archivist. Celia states that it doesn't act how she would expect an archivist to act. Sam and Celia, which, very weird. But then they meet up with Helen Richardson, the real estate agent, to find out what she knows about the Magnus Institute. This is when, Sam tries to play it they're trying to buy a house. That's why they would contact a real estate agent. To where Celia just says, oh no, we're filming a documentary about the Magnus archives and we knew you were a part of it.
Helen goes, a proper one? Who for? And Celia's like, the BBC.
And Helen is all over this.
Yes.
Basically informs them that the Magnus Institute had very specific requirements for various properties, including big basements and security options. She also states that she hadn't been in contact with him for over 20 years, but after a little bit of debating back between the two of them, she ends up giving them some old listings that they were interested in for properties. So we finally get it actually called the Archivist.
Yes, we also...
Very interesting.
Does it stop there completely?
Does it? Is there something else?
Yeah, we get Jack's here now.
Oh! Damn you, Google or Wiki page.
Okay, so after that, you get Jack and Sam. Jack is the little baby, and Sam is basically mocking Helen for being a Tory. Jack laughs at it, and then Sam mocks Jack for being a Tory. Sam tells Jack to re-examine his political views. Jonathan Sims, asexual...
Jonathan Sims, you asexual bastard.
Asexual
the second kissing
icon
time.
cuts off directly as they start kissing, which real win.
Okay. Anyways. Yeah, it is this one. I like this one. So, Magnus Protocol, episode 27, Driven. This one is also, written by Johnny Sims. So, it starts off in the OIAR. Sam is working away while Lena and Gwen clean up the office for the upcoming minstrel visit. Lena questions Sam about particularly cluttered shelf, to which Sam replies it belongs to Colin, adding that he would likely sort it when he's feeling better. Lena retorts that if he does ever return to the OIR, it will likely be long after the minstrel visit, and therefore Sam should clean it up. She then adds that it, if not cleaned, would be another excuse for the minister to insist upon additional oversight. Sam retorts that though he could clean it, Lena had also asked him to finish up his caseload and therefore couldn't, prompting Lena to ask Gwen to clean the shelf. After which Lena leaves. Gwen angrily accuses Sam of intentionally regulating the task to her, adding that he had been grinning all night. After a short argument, Gwen relegates the task back to Sam alongside his other tasks.
Yeah, Sam also says he'll do his best to get bitter and cynical.
Yes. Which, again, I love all this, workplace comedies.
The office comedy we never got. Okay.
Then we get Augustus talking about this case, which is very interesting.
Our dear Grandpa Augustus does tell us the most wonderful stories.
So, this is a series of diary entries dating back to the 19th century, mid-19th century. The first one is dated February 18th of 1845. It is written by a person later to be revealed the founder of the Magnus Institute and goes by the surname of Magnus.
Makes sense.
This person describes their failure in achieving the great work. Also references in recommendation from N. Magnus states that they, referring to the Magnus Institute, have been undertaking the great work for almost 3 decades and have been unable to achieve transformations beyond the individuals. Some dozen of the finest minds of the age working on their own. Magnus speculates that perhaps their need for scenery may be the reason for their failure, or that group efforts would be unable to succeed due to the spiritual nature of alchemy. The next entry is dated February 22nd of 1845. And in it, Magnus recalls their experience hailing down a carriage while on the way to the London...
This one.
You just recognize this one?
Yeah, I think it before. Okay, this one's good.
Magnus recalls their experience hailing down a carriage while on the way to the London Magnus Institute offices. Magnus originally intended to take a Clarence carriage, describing as a growler by the housekeeper, but upon approaching it, noticed that there was only one single coachman dressed in an oilskin gray coat, unsuitable for the weather. Magnus then noticed that the cab had looked somewhat unusual, glossy black with smoother joints in the wood.
Fly. Looks like a fly. He says it looks like a fly.
Did you know?
Did you know? And there's a sheen on the plush red furnishings, almost as though they'd become wet somehow. Mm-hmm. It looks wrong. There's another prospective passenger who stepped ahead of him into the Clarence, and it began to move immediately. The door closed very quickly. There was no sign of the passenger was in the carriage, and it seemed empty once again. The coachman's greatcoat was caught briefly by a gust of wind as they moved away, and there was no border, dividing line, or gap between the coachman and the coach. They were one.
And then in the following entry, dated of February 26th...
Not done yet?
Wait, there was more for that?
He says, I would be wise to keep an eye out for this vehicle, restrict myself to hansom cabs, and try to forget the unnerving sound of the growler.
The growler.
Okay, next one.
Next entry, February 26th. Magnus describes how they found the growler again and engaged another carriage to follow it when it caught its next passengers. A young man in a frock coat Magnus followed the carriage for over an hour, and in that time noticed a red tinge in the ruts of the growler. The growler then disappeared into an alleyway. After it leaves, Magnus inspected it in the alleyway and found scraps of old clothing, old newspaper, and an umbrella. The freshest of these was a frock coat. That frock coat probably belonged to the passenger. Magnus then references Robert Boyle's scrutiny of the Magnus Institute's activities, and that the growler may provide knowledge to a world unknown to them. And then the final entry date, March 2nd. Magnus recounts how they persuaded a young man of the Magnus Institute, Archibald Cameron,
R.I.P. Archibald Cameron.
You were
doing the dirty work by Magnus.
To take a trip inside the growler and record its findings. Magnus states that the loss of skin and eyes were the part of what occurred to Archibald inside the growler. Archibald also recorded in a notebook retrieved by Magnus from the alley that the rate of digestion increased as the passenger's level of fear increased. Magnus considers that the information obtained on the growler to be essential to their work. Magnus expresses no regrets for Archibald's death.
Wow, thanks.
Sad Archibald. So, Gwen then receives an email containing some old files. Alice complains about the list of tasks Gwen has given to her in preparation for the minister's visit. Is there anything else about those two?
Alice says that she can't hear Gwen over the sound of her polishing the break room knives. Gwen says it wasn't necessary to do that. Alice says, it's important if I'm going to properly murder-suicide you, Lena, and Eustace minister when he arrives.
More workplace comedy shenanery.
Alice mentions that she's trans, which is pretty cool.
More workplace shenanery.
Alice mentions trying to clean the minister with bleach and wire wool and chlorine. And then Sam and Celia are back.
Sam and Celia. They are going through the files that they got from Helen. Celia mentions that the Magnus guy would send through a lot of weird requests. The Magnus Institute's request for buildings also included a picture of the constellations as seen from the front elevation facing due west, or east, and preferences for properties with intact first-generation perchloroethylene machines. Celia also notes that one of their final purchases in 1997, a retail unit in the Hilltop Center that was set up as an outreach center. Although it only stayed open for a couple of months, Sam and Celia speculate that no one has visited since it was shut and decided to visit. Then we cut back to Alice as she enters complaining about the ministerial visit. Celia references her intention to visit the Hilltop Center, and Alice offers to join them.
To do
more Magnusing. Alice offhandedly mentions the archivist room in the Magnus Institute that she and Sam found in episode 10, and Celia is very interested in that part. That is where this episode ends. Yeah. That's right. This was a thing that I noticed, and then this also mentioned it. So, Celia claims that the Magnus Institute Oxford Outreach Center at Hilltop was established in 1997 and only opened for a few months. But this is inconsistent with the events described by Darian in Mag 17 saved copy, the duplicate guy. Oh. Darian's Magnus Institute statement was given in November of 1997, but in it, he describes having emerged from the basement of the outreach center after some kind of interdimensional travel about 4 years earlier, implying that the Magnus Institute has already established an outreach center in at least 1993. So, okay. Again, probably weird, dimensional travel stuff, but still interesting. So, Magnus Protocol, episode 28, Interruptions. Lena shows the minister, Trevor Herbert, around the OIAR. Trevor Herbert, once again voiced by the magnificent Ian Hales. She shows him around the office, introducing him to Sam, Celia, and Alice as the primary processing team. Lena then explains to Trevor that the data processing and amalgamation tools are locked into a 24-hour cycle. The crawlers scrape online resources during the day, and once the Nationals pre-publish the data is incorporated into the caseloads. Trevor wonders if he should get a photographer in, as the team are so diverse.
Yeah, but when Lena says that, she also says that they could fix the system, but it would be very expensive. Trevor then says, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Mm-hmm. So they're not getting off of night shift.
No, they're not. They could, but they're not.
And then, again, team diversity.
Team diversity. Lena then says that their incident numbers had been improving since Trevor took over. Trevor expresses relief at this, and that he will keep Gorium Smith off his back. We cut to later, only with Lena and Gwen, and Trevor expresses concern that one of their subcontractors, which Lena and Gwen realize to be Inksol, was implicated in a recent death. Trevor threatens to use Lena as a scapegoat if the problem gets out of control. Then Celia, Alice, and Sam express relief at Trevor finally leaving, and annoyance towards his attitude towards them. He was very, again, smuggish, or just like not caring, I suppose.
Great juxtaposition from what he was in the Magnus archives.
Very flip on the character, which is interesting. Alice then leaves to go get drinks with Teddy, and Sam and Celia to consider being more open with him.
Diversity time. Alice says, I personally love to be diverse, and I think they should absolutely send a photographer down here to capture me diversing all over the place. She then asks Celia if she's feeling a little diverse, and basically they just keep going. Great.
I love
Alice. Office comedy.
Office comedy. Sam then leaves to see what kind of car Trevor is being picked up in to settle a bet with Alice. As Trevor is picked up, Gwen approaches him outside. Trevor recognizes her surname being, Gwendolyn Bouchard.
Gwen is Jeremy's granddaughter.
Yeah, Jeremy's granddaughter.
Yes.
Gwen says that they haven't spoken in years. Gwen tells Trevor that Lena has been lying to him and gives him files detailing her in that she can give him files detailing Lena's incompetence over the last 20 years. Trevor, pleased by this, gives Gwen his personal number, saying that if she tried calling like his offices, he wouldn't care to respond. Sam steps outside of view Trevor's car, and the door is slammed shut as he leaves.
Trevor also mentions that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree when talking about Gwen threatening to betray Lena. So Jeremy might have done something.
And if it was grandfather, then
yeah.
Anyways, we get a light. So, as Sam is still outside view, after Trevor leaves, he then starts just talking to himself, seemingly. It is a life statement compelled by Sam by the archivist. Sam recounts how he first heard of the Magnus Institute when he was selected for its Gifted Kids program as a child. He was so proud to have pleased his parents by achieving this. 2 other children from Sam's school were elected, Saul and Joy. They were accompanied on the train from London to Manchester by a teacher, Mrs. Lang. Upon arriving at the institute, they were met by a man called Gilbert, who led them to a room filled with other children. Sam was one of the first to be tested by 2 women who asked him questions such as, was I happy at home? What do you do when I feel angry or upset? When is it okay to lie? The women seemed to be unhappy with Sam's answers, which was getting Sam really upset. He began to cry and then ran away. Sam soon realized that he was lost, began trying random doors, but they were all locked. One with the nameplate reading Dr. F. Welling was open. Inside, an old man in a tweed suit stood chanting in front of a table with a naked, likely dead person on top of him. Next to the table were machines and bubbling beakers. Chunks of stone and metal hung in the air, and yellow light seemed to come from everywhere. Sam said hello, and this caused the man, presumably Dr. Welling, to stumble in his chanting. The glass exploded, the rocks fell, and the yellow light vanished, sucked away into Welling, who then opened his mouth and reached toward Sam. However, his flesh did not move, only the bone of his arm. His skin strained to contain it, then blood erupted as the arm's bones burst out, and the arm reached into Welling's chest and tore out a chunk. Then the other bones emerged, ripping off Dr. Welling's face to reveal the skull underneath. This is when Sam ran.
The ecstatic skull within, and it's smiling at him. Which is, fun stuff to have children go through.
Yeah, trauma. He was eventually found and brought back to join the other children. His parents were upset that he was rejected from the program. Sam expressed shame at not being special enough to be a part of the program and how he remained scared seeing the skull under people's faces. He then says that he's going back to the Magnus Institute to find, but then collapses. So, after Sam collapses, the archivist takes one last breath of Sam's memory and then leaves, and the tape recorder clicks off. To the penultimate episode, Mag episode 29, Keyed In.
Sam and Celia are outside. Sam's passed out, presumably. Celia wakes him up. They go inside.
Sam recalls that his mind went to the Hilltop Center, which leads him to believe that the archivist is going to do something terrible. He insists that they must go there to stop it. Celia initially protests, but relents. Lena leaves for the night while Gwen is still working, and Chester starts talking without prompting anything to Gwen's surprise. This is Chester, and it is a series of diary entries from a homicide case. First entry dated November 19th, 2019. Viola Locke. The author recounts how her husband Stanley gifted her the diary and told her to pack her bag for a surprise trip. Viola then... Sorry?
Pink travel diary and has flowers in it with significant blood damage.
Viola then describes how they went to Prague and that Stanley had booked the Archibald, where they had stayed last time. They visit the attractions, including the river, Charles Bridge, a Gothic tower, a fancy clock, and a sex museum. Viola then says that she suspects Stanley is purposefully avoiding Lover's Bridge and is intending to reenact his proposal there later. The following entry on November 21st reads only... I'm not going to pronounce that. December 24th, and it read, I miss him, I'm alone on Christmas, and it's my fault. It was followed by the next entry on January 1st, wishing Stanley a Happy New Year. And then January 29th, where Viola recounts the rest of the events and their visit to Prague. It started raining when they went to knock. All the locks had been cut off of the bridge, but Stanley went on one knee anyway. He got struck due to his injured hip and had to be assisted by a man nearby. While checking out the cafe nearby, they discover a place called Zamsin Museum, which Stanley translates as the Lock Museum. This excited Stanley, who decided to go and buy another lock to put on the bridge. When they arrived in the front of the museum, they noticed a squat man, even wetter than they were, sitting out front. He played with a deck of playing cards and smoking a pipe. Inside was dim, damp, and smelly. A tunnel led into a staircase which spiraled down to a heavy wooden door instead of a knocker. The door had a key with 4 spiky arrow points pointing inwards at the handle and on it. Viola recognized this symbol as being the Knights of Malta, who supposedly built the canal. Stanley, not seeing the key, tried the door and finding it locked. He was disappointed, but Viola took the key and unlocked it. The key was probably made out of ivory and colored. The door unlocked the moment Viola inserted the key before she turned it. They entered a large room with a millstone in the center. Along the walls were dark, glossy plinths with a key displaced on each. The keys were highly varied. While Viola looked over them all, Stanley stopped at one near the entrance, their lock from Lover's Bridge. It was engraved with the phrase, "For the love of a lock." Viola picked it up, and the main door slammed shut. Stanley attempted to open the door, but it was locked. The words that were said earlier
means unlock your heart, apparently.
Yes, means unlock your heart. It was carved in the back of the door, which Viola recorded later, and that was the little secret language message.
And then they start freaking out.
They start freaking out because water begins to fill the room. Through gaps between the wooden boards and between the stones on all sides of the room. As they begin to search for an escape, Viola stumbles upon a bolt on the floor covering a trap door. She managed to open it and fell down into the hole. It was only a short drop. She could stand there on her shoulders, clearing the trap door. The water level was beginning to tower. Stanley, seeing what happened and smiled, moving towards her. He then slipped, hitting his head on the ground. Viola shut the trapdoor, locking it with their lock to keep it shut against the water, and fled. Despite Stanley being supposedly dead, she heard him calling to her as she fled. She was later rescued and brought to a hospital. Stanley's body washed up 2 days later, unrecognizable. Viola kept the key and considered it beautiful. She found it could unlock anything, even cracks in the wall. She planned to use it on herself, to press it into her chest and open up her heart and let out all the grief. And then Alice and Teddy are at the pub, as they usually are, for drinks. Teddy admits to some difficulty adjusting to not working nights. Teddy says that he has been meaning to talk to Alice about something serious, but then Alice receives a voicemail from Sam telling her that he and Celia are leaving for the Hilltop Center to stop the Archivist. Alice then leaves immediately for the train station. Alice arrives at said train station, but is barred for access from the train as she does not have a ticket. She calls Sam, but he refuses to get off the train. As it pulls away, Alice sees the Archivist on the train. This was another good one. I like this one.
Yes, I like that one a lot. I listened to it when we were on the other side of the state, just about to go into a museum.
Oh,
that I knew had
perfect
locks and keys in it. It's just kind of creepy.
Okay, a little creepy. The season finale of season 1 of the Magnus Protocol,
Hooray. Dead
End Job, which I guess are 3 words you could describe the OIAR.
Okay, so Celia and Sam are hanging out.
Yes, on the train to Oxford, Sam ignores Alice's text and calls saying he can't face them yet. He complains that he still has a headache from the Archivist attack, quote unquote. Meanwhile, at the Paddington station, Alice continues trying to call and message Sam, yet after another failed attempt, she buys herself a ticket to Oxford. Colin then calls her, asking if she's in the office. He then says that he's in trouble, he messed up. He also mentioned Freddie. Alice says she'll come by and help him as soon as she's finished. Colin, then saying goodbye, hangs up. Alice is torn, but decides to continue going to Oxford. At the OIAR, Lena approaches Gwen saying that she had a call from Trevor. Lena says that there is more at stake than Gwen knows, and she is not prepared for the consequences of her actions. Lena leaves, wishing Gwen good luck, and Gwen laughs in disbelief. A taxi then is taking Sam and Celia to the Hilltop Center. Sam is nervous as they pass through units, including a dentist with a sign saying, "Want your teeth?" and an appliance store with banging coming from inside. They meet the custodian, who is actually voiced by Robin Hellier, and also the ticket officer Kai Partini and Pip Gladwin as their taxi driver. The custodian tries to encourage them to leave, but they refuse, and so he agrees to let them in via the back door. Alice arrives in Oxford and bribes the taxi driver to tell them where Sam and Celia are, and that's when they take them to Hilltop Center. The custodian goes to the appliance store to lock it up. He is beginning to talk to himself, which turns into a statement and a fight against the archivist's compulsion. So, the custodian used to clean hospitals. He knew what dried blood looked like, and at the Hilltop Center, it was everywhere. He tried to ignore it at first, but when he began to wonder whether it was from victims of the place, or if it was mixed into the concrete when it was built, or if the buildings had just bled, or maybe the place was a wound that would never heal. He had been working the job for 30 years, only staying because of the high salary. His life was bad when he met the owner, and he asked the owner about the blood. The owner just added another 10 grand to his salary. Love it. He had never come to the Hilltop Center during the day, as it felt like it would break an unspoken rule. He cleans up the pieces of victims sometimes. Hair, torn out teeth, fingernails. He warns people away, but people don't always listen. The first person to not listen was in winter of 1997, a man who wanted to buy a lighter. A news agent the custodian had never noticed was suddenly open, and the man went inside. From the other side of the center, the custodian could smell burnt hair and charred flesh. Sometimes people would appear, emaciated. An ambulance would come pick them up once he called the police, because they heard someone whimpering. It appeared to be a woman in place of a mannequin. The police arrived too late the following day. The custodian received a call from the owner who threatened the custodian's daughter. The custodian was never curious again, even when he found the owner dead in his office. Every blood vessel stripped from his body and hung around the office. The pay still kept coming.
Hooray.
The custodian took holidays occasionally, as he should do. Cheers to him.
He says they're really important to keeping his sanity.
Yeah. But he still dreamt of the place and its concrete bones. He describes the concrete enveloping him, and as it does so, he begins to turn to concrete. As he transforms complete, he says, "We are the hilltop, it is me, and I am it. And He's gone. So, Sam and Celia are inside the Magnus Institute Outreach Center. It appears to be cleared out. Then Celia discovers stairs down to a basement. At the bottom of the stairs, they see a tear between universes. Sam notes that it splits the light like a prism, and Celia says that she almost knows what it is. Sam pushes but doesn't elaborate, but then he snaps, demands to know what the hell is actually going on. Celia says that this is a wound in the world, between this one and where she's from, and that it wants her back, as it is unbalanced. Sam is confused. Celia explains that everything, the alchemy, Dua Prima, 4 elements, 7 planets, are all about balance. That's why she's being pulled back there. She says she has nothing to go back to, but a life in this universe has Jack. Yeah. Sam realizes she brought him here to balance it out. Celia apologizes, saying that she did really like him, and Sam challenges her to make him go in, but Celia begins to be compelled by the archivist. Celia says that she knew nothing when she awoke. She had lost her identity, and the archivist appears at the top of the stairs. Sam tells it to get away from Celia, and the archivist says, "At last. It is mine." And Sam tackles the archivist as they fall into the universe's tear.
Then Taxi Driver and Alice.
They arrive at the Hilltop Center, and she comes across the custodian, who is still repeating, "We are Hilltop. We are Hilltop." Then we cut to Gwen going through Lena's office, finding some alcohol, pours herself a drink. Trevor calls her, congratulating Gwen on her promotion. When she asks what she should do, he says he doesn't like to micromanage. Then Alice arrives in the basement to find Celia passed out on the floor. Alice asks where Sam is. Celia responds that he and the archivist fell into the rift as he tried to protect her.
So remember back when Sam said that he would do anything for Celia?
Oh boy, does that bite him in the ass the biggest way it could.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
And then...
That's it.
Yeah.
there's also an epilogue, which came out a little while after the season finale. But it is Gwen sitting back at her chair, nervously. She hears something in the main office and grabs a desk ornament. As Alice enters the room looking for Lena, Gwen almost attacks her by accident. Alice asking where Lena is, Gwen explains that she's in charge now, and Alice says Sam is gone, and that Celia had to go home to her kid. Gwen doesn't know what to do and asks if Lena had any documentation of protocols or how to run stuff. Gwen mentions Colin, reminding Alice of Colin's call to him. Alice then calls Colin, and they hear a phone ringing in the main office, and they begin to follow the sound. This is when we cut to what the transcripts say is the London exclusion zone.
Yippee.
As Sam falls through something, a portal perhaps, and he falls unconscious. This was also a tape recorder clicked in, and that's why we heard that. We cut back to a phone inside a server rack, specifically. As Gwen and Alice follow the ringtone into the server room, the ringtone appears to be coming from the server tower, and as Gwen opens the server rack and screams, it is implied that she is seeing Colin's body strung in wire.
I think it's like Cabinet Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you heard the Cabinet Man stuff?
The Cabinet Man?
Yeah.
I think that sounds familiar.
It's Cabinet Man. Colin is Cabinet Man. He is the computer.
And that is where that's everything for season 1. Anyways, so we have a couple minutes, I'll say, to just discuss everything that has happened over these last 3 parts. Theory time. So, have you listened to the Season Protocol 2 trailer?
Yes.
Okay. Did you watch my breakdown on it that I made?
No.
No, how dare you? Anyways, so my theory is, for those who pay attention, it is blatantly, obviously, what's happening. There are people who think that that the other universe, it could be some other different universe, or what most of us think it is the Archives universe. Again.
Do you think it's a different universe?
No, it's Archives. Why would they make a whole nother universe?
Wait, no. Okay, what do you think it is then?
I think it's the Archives universe. I think that is the post-change. That is post-change Archives universe.
Yeah, I agree with that, but that means that there's 2 different universes at least. Yeah,
there's the Protocol and the Archives. Some people think it's some third one. That's what I'm trying to say here. I think I explained myself wrong.
I think it's like Apocalypse World.
Yeah,
like it's tunnels.
Yes, and it's cool thing about that season 2 trailer is that it is implied that there is still fear or entities or something. There's still stuff going on. Yes. Like, oh, we thought we collected all of these tape recorders? Apparently not. There's one right there. But anyways, season 1, what do we get from this as a whole? Not much in regards of fear. More the sense that alchemy, the changing of something to another, Full Metal Alchemist fans, the law of equivalent exchange, just all this alchemical stuff, which I'm really excited because we leave off on, we have the Protocol gang. Colin's dead body is in the computer. Is that reharking on the other, foreshadowed from the other episode where Alice mentioned, I think it was Alice mentioned, is like the only way that you could fix any of this is if you were literally shoved into the server, or I think Colin said that, or something like that, foreshadowing. And then we have Sam in the Archivist being in post-apocalypse Archives universe. So I'm just very excited for how all this is going to play out.
Yeah, I hope I get more of Sam's perspective. Definitely not because I missed the old crew or anything. Well,
okay, even that, if like the old crew that would still be alive, like saying even if Martin and John are dead, or whatever, old Basira, Melanie, blind Melanie, Georgie, I was gonna say Daisy, the Admiral.
I know, we can go hang out with the Admiral.
We can go. Sam can meet the Admiral. They can It'd be really funny if the Admiral did not like Sam. That'd be hilarious.
That'd be sad.
But anyways, thank you all for joining us on this wonderful journey of this 3-part conclusion, and we will see you all in the first episode breakdown of Magnus Protocol Season 2.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.